Fair. Hello, welcome to the new episode. Say hi,
I
Anushka.
hi. I realized while listening to I did listen to one of the episodes and I realized that maybe we should do an introduction, like have a intro something because if someone's just starting episode 9, they don't
Hmm.
know what they're listening to. If it's just played
Exactly.
through shuffle,
Yes.
who are these
Fantastic.
people talking now? We
What
don't
a
even say our names.
what a brilliant idea to finally have after like 9 or 10 episodes in that. You know what? Maybe, just maybe, we should have an intro. Isn't that like the most sane thing?
And like what is the name of the podcast and
Yeah, why is it the name of the podcast?
why is it like it is like because it's a low no effort zero effort
Yeah,
podcast like
yeah.
nobody
But
knows.
then, but then you realize by the time you give all of this information out, you're gonna be like 3 minutes into the podcast.
No, we will make it short, like we will do like one line thing, like you know how those what was that podcast company that had that sound like welcome to the podcast. I forgot, sorry. But it was very calm. You're listening to
Was it IVM podcasts? Because I remember
no,
IVM had something similar.
uh, IVM did. I'm talking about the true crime podcasts that I
Serial.
yes, serial, yes,
Yes, the
serial.
serial.
Yes, serial, yes. That was my first thing that got me into podcast.
Same, dude. Legit. Serial was the one that
No
was like,
way. I
yeah.
I heard serial and then I was like, I need to write a thesis on it. And then I wrote a thesis on it
Dude,
because I was
serial.
so invested.
Serial changed me as a person, I think, because I have never up until that point in my life ever heard an audio clip with like focus. Okay. So this was like a new thing that I'm discovering in my life, and then it just changed.
It changed my life as well because I was like I think it was at work. I had just started working
Hmm.
and it was like I would listen to music and then I think I was on I don't know where I was on because that time I didn't even have Spotify. So I think it
Mhm.
was either one of the websites or SoundCloud or where I found it. I found it and I heard one episode and I was like, this is something. Also, Spotify didn't have podcast that time. I don't
Yep,
know.
I didn't even know Spotify was a thing at the time. I heard about Serial
Interesting.
because of something. Again, the memory is all fuzzy, so I don't remember. But it was because of something, and I was looking for it,
I
and
wasn't
then it
even
was
looking for
some website, not
I
even
don't
SoundCloud.
it wasn't it wasn't I think it was one of those podcasting websites that existed
Yes,
which had a lot of podcasts
yes,
because
yes.
after Serial I also heard the Wolverine podcast it was like a story thingy
There's a
which was
Wolverine podcast.
not like it was sort of a podcast, it was called a podcast and
Hmm.
and then I studied like why is it not called an audiobook and why is it called like a podcast or it's
Yeah,
audio
yeah.
series or something.
Hmm.
And the whole point of a podcast is that it's a conversation.
Hmm.
So during the Wolverine show I don't even remember what it was called, but it
Hmm.
was a conversation, like no one's setting a scene for you, like
Hmm.
it's a
Hmm. Hmm.
conversation that the scene's being
Right,
set.
right, right.
Yeah, and was serial was so long back and I
Serial
feel
was
like
ages ago. And so you were talking about, you mentioned something about it being a conversation, right? Podcasts are just like a
it
conversation.
is supposed to be at least
Yeah, and
traditionally that
yeah, and I remember at the time, even when I was looking into it, I was so fascinated by it because I was like, oh, this really appeals to my introvertedness. So, like,
yes.
because I do like talking to people and all of that, great. But there are a lot of instances, whether it's in friend groups or conversations, where I really just take the back seat and just observe people. I'm like, I'm not an active contributor. I don't want to be. I'm in on it. You know, I'm listening to you and I know I'm listening to you, but I don't need to engage only. So you have the entire conversation, and that is very comforting for me.
Yeah, I
And
think
that
it
is the
was
reason why podcasts were I gravitated to them so much because it was like, okay, cool. I'm it's this weird parasocial thing, but I'm hanging out with these two people.
I think it was exactly the same for me because like I felt in social situations where I am around a group of friends I'm
Hmm.
comfortable with and they're talking,
Right.
I find it a very peaceful space that I can nap here.
Yeah,
That
yeah. No, exactly. I
I'm
literally
very
just
calm.
sit there. I just sit and observe. I don't even listen to them much. I'll be like, okay, cool. I get what you're saying, but
Yeah,
let me just relax and digest it. It's like I'm watching it and that's it. I don't need to do anything. It's
yeah,
a very safe, chill place. I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah. And podcast sort of did that for me at work because then I could
Hmm.
just hyper focus on work while listening to something in the background. I could
Hmm.
just do my own thing, knowing that it's like a safe space. So it
Right.
was, I think it was Serial, and I started listening to Cyrus Says a
Hmm.
lot, and that's how I got in. Like I emailed IVM, and that time IVM was also very small. Like it was so easy to like.
Yeah.
Now that I think about
Now
it, like
IBM is like big. They're doing it pretty really good right now. They
that
have
time,
so many shows and a lot of talent and stuff. So it's good.
I
IBM is
don't
doing
think
great.
like they're doing that well, but still, like it wasn't like they weren't very profitable that time. And I asked them about how they were making money, and it was
Hmm.
mostly making like training series and stuff for corporates. Like they worked with the
Oh, so that's
didn't get
cool. Okay.
sponsorships that time as much, so
Hmm.
they were using talents for other thing,
Hmm.
and which makes you also think that like when I like wrote a thesis on podcasting, it was a very homely sort of community instead of it
Hmm.
being an industry. So you could go and talk to people and people
Right.
respond. And I remember like I also reached out to May, who does
Hmm.
Made in India, and she was also very helpful. And a bunch of comedians had started doing
Hmm.
podcasts there.
Hmm. Hmm.
I spoke with them, and they were all very like helpful, and you could just go and have a conversation with them. And
Right.
it's the same when I was doing the thesis on virtual production because the
Hmm.
community was very small
Right.
and they're very helpful. Like they're welcoming, they can come talk to people. And I've realized that I think I thrive in smaller community
Hmm.
workplaces because
Hmm.
even with vegan and plant-based industry, like it's
Hmm.
still a community and it's getting to be
Right.
an
Right.
industry. So I think it's pretty like if someone's interested in making a career, I would suggest
Hmm.
finding spaces where it's still a community instead it's
Right, right.
being an
It always
industry.
comes with that risk, of course, because it is a small community, whether
Yeah,
it's actually going to blow up or
yeah,
not. But yeah, that's your call you take. That's all.
yeah, yeah. You see, it's. I would say yes, because even with virtual production, a lot of people
Hmm.
got fired.
Hmm.
If like there were times when it wasn't doing well. Even now,
Hmm.
I think some of them are not doing well.
Hmm.
But you make a very good network out of it that you
Right,
will find work again. Like
right.
it, someone or the other will pull you through and you
Hmm.
will find work. And I think
Hmm.
it's the same with the podcasting community. I know
Hmm.
when in India they were switching, a lot of people were switching through, and it's always like if you were in the original community, you will pull through
Hmm.
and you make so much with podcasting, especially the network so
Right.
because you talk to so many people.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the time job to talk to people. So
Right.
it works.
That's so fascinating. This entire smaller industry of podcasting that was there, it was legitimately just like a bunch of people saying, "Hey, let's just talk and record." And then there were 10 to 20 people who were doing it at most, right? And then it slowly grew to the point where it has become a legitimate industry at this point. Because podcasts are big money. Everyone's doing podcasts now.
I
It's
also
become mainstream because there are like mainstream media outlets that have, or journalists even, who have stopped reporting and just have a podcast.
also as far as I remember from what with the thesis,
Hmm.
think podcasts was a term coined by Apple with iPod. It was
iPod, yeah, 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 yeah.
we were the ones who
Yes.
launched podcasts in like
Mm,
mid 2000s and stuff. So
mm,
that time it was still not that big. Um, and in India, it just took a lot more time. And there were people in India that were doing podcasts on SoundCloud. There was
mm.
AIB who had their podcast like
Right.
2010, 11.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was way
Yes.
early, way ahead of its time. So there
Mm.
were people. It just needed the pandemic to pick up.
Yeah, the pandemic was a huge push actually. So I think even before the pandemic, podcasts have become sort of mainstream, but not mainstream, because there
Mm.
were a lot of people doing podcasts at the time. So they were big enough that you would talk to people. But now it's become big enough to the point where it's hyper mainstream. Like everyone has a podcast that they listen to, which
Yeah,
was not the case.
and again, like when I was doing my thesis, I was trying to make a list of podcasts in India, and they
Hmm.
were still under 100, like
Hmm.
active podcasts with,
Right.
and I had a thing like it had to have 10 or more episodes.
Hmm.
So we wouldn't fit in that list yet, but
Yay.
but yeah, so that was the criteria, and there was still like under 100. There weren't
Hmm.
now I think it's like thousands
Yeah,
more than
it's
that,
mad now.
but that time there weren't. And people were doing very cool stuff. And even then, like there was the whole debate about like, so how's a radio show not a podcast, because radios were doing
Yeah. Yeah.
that. So
Hmm.
it was a bit, but I think what few things that changed the game, which was also for Netflix and everything. One, the
Hmm.
Geo thing that
Yeah,
within
Geo just changed everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
lot of things. The pandemic and
Hmm.
Spotify. Spotify, not just Spotify as a platform, but when Spotify came in, other platforms also grew, and they
Yes.
started having podcasts, and it was
Hmm.
a, easier to have it all in one place. And then
Hmm.
YouTube started podcasts, like
Right.
video podcasts also picked up.
Right.
So it was just a lot of things happening together that
Hmm.
I
I
feel.
remember the days of Savan music before Spotify came to India. There was Savan, and I think I was using SoundCloud primarily, and
I
then
was
some Savan was there, some app that was there. Amazon Music for a while was a thing, very briefly, and what
yeah,
else?
I didn't use a Savan. I had a Sony phone, so Sony had Sony Music, which was pretty
Good enough.
decent.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and but mostly for indie artists, it was always SoundCloud. To
Yeah.
find also SoundCloud.
Yeah. There was a period of time where you could get like an APK of Spotify and install it.
Oh
So
yeah, I know a lot
I
of
did
people.
that for a while. So I would juggle between that and SoundCloud. Eventually, it just became YouTube.
I didn't start using Spotify even after it started in India, because I was like, I don't know, I don't want to switch from SoundCloud, but then all the artists shifted, and I was like, okay, I will.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of artists did. Like Post Malone was a SoundCloud rapper. Like there was a period of time where SoundCloud rapper was sort of like an insult. Or you're in the lower medium, lower platform because you're not on Spotify. But then like people like Post Malone and everyone just became big artists as musicians instead of being stuck to platforms. And then after that, it sort of just went away. Does Spotify still have a monopoly on the music industry? I mean, it does, right? Like it's a pop culture term at this point. Watch your Spotify and stuff. So
Maybe I know a lot of people here. That's why I think we should put our podcast on YouTube, because a lot of people I meet don't use Spotify that much.
yes, yes, that's like another thing. I think people really got tired of constantly switching platforms
Yes.
when we were growing up, and we were growing along with all of these apps and the internet. I think it was an exciting period because everything was changing. We're like, oh, there's a new thing, there's a new thing, and things were always changing and improving from one platform to another platform. So we were really quick to adapt multiple apps. Cool, let's go, and we did that for a bunch of years. Now it's gotten to the point where the improvements are minimal. Not a lot of changes come. Even if there is a new platform, yeah, it's cool, it's innovative for a while, but not much. So they eventually teeter out. So now you're left with a bunch of different platforms that essentially do the same thing. So now people are cutting stuff off. So now they're like, hey, I use Twitter, but now it's toxic. So screw it. I'll just stick to Instagram. Oh, Instagram has reels now, so I don't need to use TikTok anyway. Chuck that. So you start reducing everything, and
Yeah.
people just want one thing. So if they can get music, videos, and everything on YouTube, they stick to YouTube. They won't even move to Spotify because they don't have to. So
Also,
now that's also there, I guess.
I think with Spotify, last few years, touch wood, for a while, I have been on the student account.
Oh,
So,
thank God.
so
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
the premium student version, and
Mm,
it's and in the middle, like between like my graduation and stuff, it went off and it went to the normal version, and I was
mm.
like, I can't deal with this. I have to get premium because it had changed so much in the last few years. It had so many ads, and like
Yeah.
it wasn't like English ads, they were Dutch ads. I can't like, you can't play the song anymore that you want to listen to. Like if you go to the song, you press it, you play it, it won't play. It
It
doesn't
won't
play the
play. Yeah, it doesn't play.
what is that? Like, why are you forcing people like this? Just play the song. Like, okay,
Just
give
play the
ads.
song.
I will listen to ads. No, but it plays on shuffle even if you search a song and you play it. Oh, if it's ridiculous, like I would just go and search it on YouTube.
It's so ridiculous because at least in YouTube, if I just reload it two more times, the ad will go and you can watch it.
Yeah,
It's loyal to you. Spotify is so random. It was so annoying.
it was like, no, but the ad is still okay, fine. Before my song, you will make me hear an ad, I'll hear it. But it goes on that shuffle mode where it puts your song in a playlist. You can't
Yes.
see the playlist. You can't
Yes.
skip more than 5 times. You don't know when you will hear that song. You are now listening to some other random songs that you didn't want to listen to. So why? Why?
I'm relating to this so much because I kid you not, this has happened to me so many times. And the thing is, it'll always happen. So I'll give up on Spotify. Okay. I'm like, bro, I can't do this. I'll take some time away from it. It's like a toxic relationship. Then I come back. I'm like, you know what, Spotify? I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a shot again. And that time only, I'll play. It doesn't play. What happened? It gets added again. You can't skip it. It goes into shuffle. I don't know where this playlist is. How do I change the queue? Why can't I play it now? Why am I pressing this 10 more times? And why is it playing a different song 10 times?
Was it? For spot like I had hope from Spotify because Spotify was a European company and it's become like an American company now. Like the way it's
Spotify
acting, I
changed
don't like.
identities.
Yes, it's just it's not, and I am using it because I have premium. But once I go off premium, I am done with
Never
Spotify.
again. Never again.
Oh, we
But as we all know, it's a toxic relationship with Spotify.
yes.
So 3 months later, you'll be like, okay, Spotify, just one more time.
One song, please let me
One
play
more
one song.
time.
Uh, are you growing your hair? I feel like
I
at one point your hair and my hair will be the same length if you grow it a little bit more.
I don't know. I have not made up my mind about either. I don't know if I want to cut it. I don't know if I want to keep it. So I'm just not taking a decision,
Okay,
which seems like one
it's
way
fine.
to go about it. I just have
I
to
get
deal with like today is a very annoying day because it doesn't sit properly. So
uh,
until it starts becoming really annoying, I'll keep it.
you should
Well,
get a
what else are
bandana.
you gonna do?
I use bandanas on days where my hair won't behave. Just
I should get that. I should also get some headband or something just to keep it in check.
what has been up with your life?
What has been up with my life? Let's see this week. Oh, one interesting thing that has happened over the course of maybe the past week or two. I have gotten extremely into Indian history.
Oh yes, you were reading that book.
Yes, I was reading that book, and now I've also been finding a few more. I'm hunting down books and compiling like a list of stuff that I want to read, and it's getting so long now, but it's gotten to the point where Indian history and like ancient Indian philosophies and stuff I want to read. So I'm making like a list, but getting really into it. And so there's this whole movement right now, which I didn't even know it was happening, but there's this whole movement happening right now about debunking all the false history that has been peddled in the mainstream for the like since independent India. Okay, and these are having to do with stories during the freedom movement about what was sort of not told to the rest of the people, and some of the blatant lies that were told in like basic history textbooks and stuff like that. Okay.
Example, what lies?
Okay, so for example, this is a great one because this is the most common. You remember the story of Ashoka, right? Like Ashoka the Great. And we all have read him in our history textbook. We know Ashoka the Great had a big empire, and then he had some war on Kalinga, and then he felt so bad about the war that he turned into a
Say
Buddhist
yeah.
and sent missionaries around the world. Hence, he's Ashoka the Great. We respect him because he's such a good guy, because he changed and became non-violent and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, in context of like I remember history a little bit, and then I
Hmm.
remember Shah Rukh Khan Kareena Kapoor movie a little bit, where
Okay.
because the
That,
kid
that is a good
dies,
intersection.
and then he becomes like yeah, he leaves everything and stuff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
okay,
Okay.
continue.
So that's a great story because it's the everyone knows it. Every kid knows it. We all know it. And yeah, good values become non-violent. Good for you, and all of those, right? So there's this guy called Sanjeev Sanyal. Okay, he's the economic advisor for the government of India right now.
He's the one who
And
wrote that book, no? No?
yes,
That's
he's written a bunch of books, but in one
someone
of
was,
them, this story is also mentioned.
yeah, I was listening to one of the podcasts and they were talking about
Yes,
it as well.
yes. I also heard it in one of the. He was giving a lecture at some institute, and he was mentioning this story because he wanted to make a point about we need to address all of these false histories because if it was told to you incorrectly, then it was told that way with a reason, right? There's some intent behind it. What is that intent? Is it good or bad? If it's bad, then maybe we should not be telling it anymore. That is his point, basically. Or at least question it. If not change it, you need to question it with facts. So he went to all of these sites throughout his empire, collected all of these inscriptions, and did some research on this entire scenario. And he was saying how the way Ashoka came into power, first of all, his father goes to war with some kingdom. And by the time he fights that wars and comes back, Ashoka has murdered his entire family, all of his brothers, and anyone who could even be some sort of successor to the throne. And after his dad comes back, there was the details are fuzzy, but he either kills him also or something of that kind happens, or maybe his father dies in the war, something like that. But that's how Ashoka came into power. He just eliminated everyone else. And the way he grew his empire also was basically through massacres and genocides and stuff. And the most important thing about how he turned Buddhist after the Kalinga War, he turned Buddhist way before the Kalinga War. So he was already following, he was already practicing when it happened, when he carried out a lot more massacres and all. And because of Ashoka, the great Mauryan Empire actually got obliterated because he was really bad at being a king, and he used to lose a lot, and like he didn't know how to manage a kingdom properly because he was so ruthless. Like there are so many stories about stuff like this. Okay. And basically the Mauryan Empire came to an end when he was still alive. That's what, like he was still alive when it obliterated, and then he died at some point for whatever. So this has been changed. So much of the details have been removed. So obviously, if you go listen to the talk, there's a lot more interesting details. He gives a lot more facts about all the things that are wrong, and he presents it. And I was just like, oh wow.
Does it also talk about how, like, I feel like, um I don't know if they talk, and it's an assumption, but
Hmm.
from what I see, that a lot of history,
Hmm.
Hindu history particularly, I feel
Yes.
have been more glorified than Mughal history, or the Mughal part, because they didn't shy away from talking about the negatives of the Mughal
Hmm.
kingdom and what things were happening, and
Hmm.
they were like the negative parts were just put out there, that
Yes.
maybe this was so bad and stuff, but I feel like the all the Hindu Raj and stuff was
Hmm.
glorified a lot.
Oh wait, you feel like the Hindu Raj was glorified a lot?
Yes, like in a way, like it was presented like the greats,
Hmm.
and the Mughals were always like the bad people who came. Even though the
Hmm.
Britishers like were
Even.
also considered bad, but
Hmm.
for some reason, like the way the Mughal Empire was created like a villain,
Hmm.
maybe it was, I don't know history that well, but I feel
Hmm.
like in India, it's always like sort of, in my head, I feel like there was sort of a glorification towards all the Hindu empires and
Hmm.
uh, the Mughal, because I can't remember anyone that like that was like obviously the Taj Mahal, and that was sort of
Hmm.
okay, but rest of them, they were all like said like they were bad people.
Yes. Yes. But in
Just
a so this is great that you pointed it out, because one other way of looking at this exact same scenario that I'm mentioning as well is that it was similarly shown how all of these all the Hindu kingdoms that were previously there, whichever kingdoms were occupied or was obliterated by all of these Mughal emperors, the narrative was very defeatist. Like you would hear about, oh yeah, this is this glorious kingdom, and then it
mm,
was destroyed by the Mughals, and they took it over and they won. Uh, but at the same time, I mean, there must have been a lot where they also defended, right? Where
yeah, there were kingdoms that like they defended, and there were stories about how they defended their kingdom against Mughals and stuff. I remember, like, and that's why like they would. It was a, I don't know, like maybe because the Mughals came later, that it was, they were considered like just bad people. Like, how dare you?
yeah, I
Kind of.
mean, I think the first the Mughals invaded India, right?
Yes. Were they the first invaders? I think there was
Ye-
someone before them. No?
From what I remember, I mean, at least as far as I know,
I was like
I
also
mean, all
like
of these guys, Mohammed bin Tughlaq, or like, what is that? The other dude, Ghazni, all of these guys came down from Afghanistan or something, right?
yeah, and yeah. Sometimes I feel like, how does it like, of course it wasn't fair. Someone came into their own land and took it over, and then
Mm.
all of that. But why are we like, when I'm here, I feel like, why are we making like these divisions based on where you were born, which you had no control over, and then you
Yeah,
have to
dude,
be
that's the
proud of
worst.
your land.
Yeah.
Like I was just born here, yes.
Yeah, dude, it's not my
But, like,
fun. Yeah, it just happens. But people
I
take this
didn't
whole
choose it.
identity thing. See, there's one space where you can have this conversation, and it's about holding your narrative. Okay, oh, if there was a false narrative, okay, you can change it. What, let's accept that it was wrong and this is it. So that's one case. But the extreme case where you should not go is, oh, because of this, oh, let me do all of these bad things to you. Bro, I don't care what anyone did in the past. Okay, if you want to change the
Yeah,
narrative, do it, but don't do anything to me. I was not a part of it.
and India especially has that whole nationalism, like it's very strong. Like if you're like you see it during national anthems, you don't stand, people come
People
hit
will
you,
hit you.
kill you probably.
Dude, I hate it. That's like that is
I,
taking it too far. That's it. See, I'm not saying, oh, if you don't stand up, that means, oh, what, you don't want to respect or something.
it
So it
doesn't feel
does have,
democratic.
yeah, it doesn't have to be that so draconian
Yeah,
where it's seen
what
as
if
sort of like a protest. Having respect for your country, patriotism, all of that is one thing. But
see, I like India, but why do I have to like love it and fight for it? Yes, like and protect it. Because
hmm,
the whole idea of divisions and protecting your space and all of that, I don't like. I still in my head it doesn't make sense. Like
hmm,
people are, I don't know why people are fighting for land, for stuff. Just stay in your lane and let, if someone else wants to come, let them come. But that's what India
yes.
did with like Britishers. They came and then they took so much, and then they are cautious about it, which makes sense. But I'm
I
I don't know.
mean, I mean, you have to be cautious. You can't be like, oh, foreigners are gonna come rule, take over your country. That's definitely not okay, right? Like what the Britishers did was not like a good thing anyway. That was like many horrific implications are there for those 300 years of
I you know
tyranny.
Yes,
So
I
that
don't
is unavoidable. So if you need to have security to do that, then you should, of course, that is the best reason.
and I don't know if we talked about it in the last podcast, or I don't know when I mentioned, if I did talk to someone about it, was that I feel like as an Indian, I should get free tourist visa to UK at least.
Yeah,
Like that
actually.
should be like basic. I'm not
Yeah,
saying I want
Britain
to go
should owe
there.
some reparations. This is like a whole
Yes.
debate that's been going on forever, right? Like they owe something.
Yes, because here all the Europeans are going to UK whenever they want, and I
Yeah,
have to go through a very lengthy application for a tourist visa.
stinks.
I don't want to live in your country. Just give tourist visa because you live so many years in my country. Like that
Ah,
was basic,
man.
I feel.
Yeah, that is like the most minimal thing
I
you can do.
even
No
like
problem.
and Portugal is doing that for people in Goa.
Hmm.
They're giving citizenships and stuff. I don't want
Yeah,
citizenship. I
yeah.
just I don't know like how it would work because I
Like
feel
every
like
Indian does have some inherent animosity towards Britain. It is natural. It needs to exist. Okay, it's not wrong if you feel like it. Okay, don't worry about it.
it's not even that. Like I also feel like there needs to be a better body that figures out countries and their shit.
Yes,
Like
the UN is clearly not cutting it.
at all. No.
Mm.
And someone with more power, and of course not as much power that it goes to their head. Like
That's the problem with great power. Great power corrupts greatly.
because I don't like how the system works now because like your entire life depends on where you're born, what situation you're born in.
Mm.
None of it's in your control. Like it's
None
not,
of it's in your
you don't
control.
choose it. How
Mm.
does it like people born in Gaza didn't choose to be born there? Like it's not like how my brain cannot understand like why what is happening and why is it happening this way.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't help where you're born. You're ultimately that's the big thing. None of us were got the choice because we did exist. There was no consciousness, but you're here and you make do with it what you can.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's us who will think. Because people in Europe and UK or US are not going to think, oh, why was I born here? How my life would be different if I was born somewhere else. Why will they think?
True,
They're in
true.
comfort.
They never, yeah, because they already have it best. Any thought they would have is from a point of convenience, not from a point of necessity. They'd be like, oh, it would be cool if I was born in Britain or something. Go, aha. It's like very like higher level. But for some people, it would be like, man, I wish I was born in America because I can eat every day, or I don't have to live in this torture every day.
And
Mm.
like a lot of struggles of people are not the struggles that they have chosen. Like they were just given to them.
Mm.
It's I yeah, I think getting out of India just
To
sort of
exist is to
I
suffer. And
yeah, I'm just like, why are things working the way they are? I'm questioning everything,
yeah,
every single thing.
the questioning
Why am I?
existence.
Yeah, why do I wear dresses? Why am I wearing skirts? Who came up with skirts? Were there women who came up with skirts, or were there men who came up with skirts? Why are my clothing this way? Why is my haircut supposed to be? Why am I supposed to have long hair? It's all like a
I kid you not, all week, all I've done is question. I've questioned so because I'm consuming all of this so much information dump about, oh, this is wrong, that is wrong. Oh, this is how the politics was. You should like this, don't like this, hate them, hate this. There's so much going on in my head. I'm like, what is the point? Why do this? Why? It's like that loop is going on and on. And now it's like, okay, cool, I have a narrative on why this happened in the 1900s, why that, and then I'll go back in time. This is just, they're getting obsessive. I'm like, I need to know why. What's the point? Why?
it's a lot.
It's,
Also, we have 2 minutes left. Do we do another episode, or do we do like it like a break and then combine both episodes? But I've never combined episodes, and I feel like it might take more time if we. I don't know. What do you want to do?
we can just record one more and
Mm.
upload one, and then maybe upload the next one. Does that
Yeah,
work? Whenever we want. So we can do it on the same day, or you can do it different
yeah,
days. Anything works. But I think we can just record one more right now.
yeah. And should we put on YouTube? Should we start putting stuff on YouTube? And do we start from the start? Do we have videos of the start from the start? Because
We
I
do have videos of pretty much everything because they were all Zoom recordings. So all of
we
them have an audio and a video saved. At
okay,
least whatever I've recorded is there. I don't know about yours.
I should check.
You should
Maybe I
check.
do, but
If you haven't actively deleted them, they should be there.
I haven't actively deleted
Okay,
anything.
perfect. Then I'm pretty sure they'll be there. So we do
Yeah,
have all of the
we
episodes.
could start putting up stuff like
Yeah,
randomly just put it and leave it
yeah.
and see where it
So
goes.
perfect. Yeah. Maybe what we should do is start a channel and then just upload all of them
Yeah,
and then not market it or not put it anywhere. That's all.
yeah.
That's cool. That sounds
Cool.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, we have less than a minute. We'll say
I will,
goodbye and then see everyone again on the next episode. I'll change a shirt so that it's like a new day.
I will change camera angle.
Perfect. Cool. See you.
Bye.
Bye.